Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever it is for you. For me, it is just past midnight on Wednesday, July the 16th, which makes this the news for Tuesday, July the 15th, day 1238 of Vladimir Putin's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. How do you do? I'm Peter Alexievich, and this is the Live at 5 from Kyiv, coming to you from this major European capital currently under siege. And in fact, we are under air alert and air defense has been active. Hey, Debbie. Hey, Steve with a V. Hey, Herb. Hey, Anthony, Tommy, Tom. Pug and Mahone. Hi ho. G2. Helena from Sweden. How do you do, Helena? Hello, Mike Kelly. What'd I do to deserve a mister? Hey, Jackie. There's Nightshade, everybody. Nightshade, if you don't follow Nightshade, give Nightshade a follow. He's got regular updates on Ukraine, right on the ball. And he manages our Peter's Peeps groups over on the Book of Faces. If you haven't joined us there, you should join us there. Hello, Michael Boucher. How you doing? Sweating in Phoenix, I assume. Oh, no, it's a dry heat. Hey, Maddie Wright. Hey, Eli. Hey, Nicola Jones. Hi, Dawn. How's everybody doing tonight? Hey, Chef Deb. So human beings are remarkably adaptable. I haven't heard any drones tonight, Ace is high, but it wouldn't surprise me if we do before the night is over. We shall see. But I'll tell you something. 6 weeks ago, a 200 drone night was a big night, right? This morning, my first reaction when I looked at the numbers was, only 267 drones last night. No big deal, right? Like what would have been one of the biggest attacks of the war just 6 weeks ago. Now, with the kind of attacks we saw in the month of July, that was just my first response. And then I thought, that is not normal. Like, you should not think that that's normal or find it acceptable. Well, Big D says we have to find that drone production factory and attack it. The thing is that the Ukrainians have, right, repeatedly, there are at least 5 full production lines, factories for Shahed production now that we're aware of that have been targeted. The final production assembly line at the Tatarstan plant was shut down for a couple weeks following a drone strike. The problem is these drones, they're not generally, unless you hit a plant that's full of combustibles, like we saw happen at the Tambov gunpowder factory, right? And remember, they had to hit the Tambov gunpowder factory 5 times, 5 separate times over 2 years using homemade Ukrainian drones before they finally blew up the lubricants warehouse next door, which caused enough of a fire to destroy the gunpowder plant. I mean, it's a tricky business. Remember, the Ukrainians don't have big weapons like missiles, big missiles, right? They don't have them. They have 18 ATACMS missiles left. 18. How many did they get in total? Maybe 100? They don't have these weapons. So what we have seen is the Ukrainians consistently targeting those assets, trying to slow them down. But it's important to remember that some of the drone assets likely are not able to be hit. Because we believe now that Kim Jong-un in North Korea is in the process of opening drone factories on behalf of the Russians. We don't believe that they've received any deliveries from North Korea yet, but they're coming, they're coming. And that's a concern, right? As the Kremlin touts this idea of being able to send 1,000 drones a night, now they're nowhere near that. Right now, they could, if they really wanted to send 1,000 drones a night, they could do it 5 nights of the month, and then that's it. There would be nothing left for the rest of the month. These big drone attacks, 300, 400, 500, they can maybe do that 10 times a month at the as I understand the current production capacity. What's important about last night's attack, in my opinion, is that the drone interception rate was 91%. 244 out of 267 aerial targets shot down or disabled with active countermeasures, which I want to talk about here coming up in a little bit. What does that mean? Active countermeasures. But the big news today, of course, is that, I mean, if you believe the headlines, right? If you believe the headlines, Trump has had a change of heart. Trump has finally seen the light. I don't believe any of that. Hey, Van, I absolutely do not believe any of that. Hey, Tyler. Hey, Scully. So, what do I believe? Pixie, that's one of the things I believe. Eli, I believe that too. I believe, now look at what Trump is saying, right? He's saying it's a $10 billion package, but it includes 17 Patriot batteries. Hey, Mad Mike. Now, that's not possible. A Patriot battery costs $1 billion. So the package, if it was just 17 Patriot batteries, that would be over $17 billion, and it's only a $10 billion package. So are there really 17 Patriot batteries out there to give the Ukrainians? Seems unlikely. Seems highly unlikely. Now, we may just be experiencing some Trump fusion because I didn't pick up on this at first, but the actual quote from Donald Trump is, we're sending 17 Patriots with the batteries, which I don't know if he thinks that means the batteries aren't usually included, so we're including the batteries. Like it's a Game Boy for the kids at Christmas. Or if he doesn't understand what a Patriot battery is, right? A Patriot battery, of course, is comprised of the launcher, the radar, the command and control vehicles. So there's multiple vehicles that have multiple jobs. And you put a bunch of them together with a bunch of launchers and you have a Patriot battery system, $1 billion system. The only system in the world proven to shoot down the Kinzhal hypersonic missiles of the Russian Federation. Although I believe some of those Kinzhals were taken out by F-16 fighters as well in the air. So the reality is everybody keeps saying that Ukraine's getting 17 Patriot batteries. That doesn't make sense. What might make sense? What might make sense is that the Israelis retired all their Patriots over the last year. And those Patriots, we believe, were sent to the United States for retrofitting and software upgrades. Maintenance, right? Retooling. The ambassador to Ukraine from Israel, in an interview with a local paper here, recently said, it's a shame that Israel isn't getting credit for the Patriots we sent to Ukraine. Now, maybe he just meant the 90 Patriot missiles, because we know that the Israelis sent 90 Patriot missiles when they decommissioned their Patriot program. But the implication seemed to be that the Israelis were sending the Patriot batteries that they had, and they had at least 8. They may have had as many as 11, maybe, but at least definitely 8, by all accounts. Is it possible that the Israelis decommissioned their Patriot program, sent the Patriots back to the U.S. for retrofitting, and now they're being gifted to Ukraine through this umbrella $10 billion package? That would be fully half of the Patriot batteries that he's promising. Now, I don't know the answer to that question, right? I don't know where these are being sourced from. Different sources are saying things like this. European nations like Germany can send their own Patriot batteries right now, and then when America has new ones to send to Germany, they'll replace them. Okay, maybe that's how it's working. The fact is, we don't know. I read everything today that I could on this, and the details are sketchy and conflicting. I think that there's probably a good chance that those Patriot batteries are Israeli Patriot batteries. At least some of them are. I also think that it's a good chance that Trump is doing his usual taking credit for other people's work with this. Because by all accounts, weapons are on the docks ready to be delivered. Weapons will be hitting Ukraine in days, is what so many of the headlines say. And yet, the defense minister for Germany, Pistorius, said, the first, no, I'm not going to do a German accent. That's terrible. Oh my God, that's so bad. Sorry. The first Patriot battery could reach Ukraine within months. Everybody is talking about weapons on the ground in the next few days. Now, there's no way that weapons can be on the ground in the next few days unless they've been being intentionally slowed by the Trump administration. If the Trump administration, as I believe they have been slow walking for months the Biden era aid in an effort to figure out how to stop it maybe, or who knows why, right? We'll give him the benefit of the doubt. We'll say he was slow walking the aid because he wanted to bring Putin to the table and he didn't want to escalate. That's the best possible read you could have on it, right? So let's say that's why. And now he's reached a point where the pressure, the internal pressure from the Senate and the Congress on this Russia thing, and especially weapons deliveries that were authorized by Congress and paid for by Congress that did not affect American stockpiles in any way, despite the bullshit we heard from the White House and the Pentagon last week about that. Could it be that the pressure has just become so great that now the Biden era deliveries are finally flowing? And the last 1.6, 2 billion or so in weapons that the Ukrainians never got from the March 2024 Ukraine aid bill are finally coming through. It could be that simple. And then Trump is trying to, take credit for it by saying, it's part of this whole thing, which it is not, which it would not be, right? And that could be why we're hearing such talk about such great weapons package, so much shit coming this way, and yet the price tag is still pretty small for what they're talking about, So it will be interesting to see what he actually manages to deliver. There are lots of promises being made, lots of big talk. The bottom line is, will we see it on the battlefield in Ukraine? So keep your fingers crossed, kids, that it's on its way. Now, that's the weapons aspect of this, right? How does North Korea deliver weapons to Russia, and can't Ukraine take out these? No, Ron, they can't, right? And the reason why is if you go all the way, if you follow your map across the Pacific from Alaska over to Kamchatka, right, across the Pacific Ocean, so 11 time zones away from where I am, you'll notice North Korea is here and then Vladivostok is up here. And what they do is they send cargo ships from port to port. I said 11 time zones, 9,000 miles away. Ukraine, I don't know how Ukraine is going to get there. Well, that's how they get it from North Korea to Russia. Then generally it comes on train from across Russia. So, you know, they've hit the rail. The one major rail trestle is still out, which still forces any deliveries from the Far East to take a much longer, it adds like 600 miles to the trip. So there's that anyway, right? But on the big news of today, around the sanctions on Russia, to be clear, Trump's 100% tariffs on Russia in 50 days are a completely separate thing from the weapons deliveries. Weapons deliveries, sanctions have not failed, James. Don't be ridiculous. That's like a ridiculous thing to say. No one paying attention could believe that. Okay, so look. Separate from the weapons deliveries, which appear to be about to take place, certainly that's the press we're being given to believe, is the 100% tariffs on Russian goods, which, according to Trump, if he doesn't get a deal, if I don't have a deal, Vladimir, in 50 days, we're 100% tariffs on all Russian goods and heavy, heavy sanctions. Strongly going to sanction Russia is what he said. Now, what does this mean, and does Russia give a shit? Russia does not give a shit. Russian trade with the United States has fallen from a pre-war high of $30 billion a year to less than $3 billion a year right now. Walmart did $218 billion last year. One retail outlet, a trading partner that you do if you're the United States, a trading partner that you only do $3 billion a year with is not important to you. And you can lose that trade real easily. And frankly, $3 billion in an economy of $2.2 trillion annually, $3 billion is a small percentage of GDP. So Trump's 100% tariffs are no threat of any kind to Russia. But they certainly serve Trump and serve Russia well. The threat of it serves Russia well. Why? Because what Trump has been able to do by saying, 50 days, Vladimir, then we're going to hit you hard, he's giving Putin the summer offensive. Putin's goals this summer are to secure the last unconquered territories of Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson. He wants all of the illegally annexed territories. And the summer offensive appears to be a play to gain that ground, capture those territories, and hold on to them. Quite permanently, right? Trump giving him 50 days gives Vladimir his last gasp effort. analysts from the ISW to independent analysts, as well as state ministries of defense like the British MOD, agree that it is highly unlikely that Vladimir Putin can accomplish this simple goal this summer. He simply does not have the men or the machines to do it. So the 50 days appears to be an absolute gift from Donald Trump to Vladimir Putin as a last-ditch effort to get his goals accomplished. Further, it appears that Trump has used this 50 days to delay Lindsey Graham's Russia sanctions bill another 2 months. So we know that Trump has already delayed the Russian sanctions by 3 months. Now, with this 50-day gig, he's given Putin time to address his summer offensive, and he said to the Senate, listen, boys, just hold off on that sanctions bill. We'll give him just 50 days. It's not a long time. 50 days, it's nothing. 50 days, and then we'll see. So he's delayed the sanctions, but by the time that this is done, that he will have successfully delayed the Russian sanctions bill with its 87 senators of co-sponsors for 5 fucking months. 5 months. Hey, everybody, there's Arna, who is the sponsor of tonight's live. Arn's longtime supporter of the channel, big supporter of the channel. Really appreciate his contributions here. And if you would like to sponsor live and have everybody say thanks for sponsoring the live, everybody say thanks for sponsoring the live. The PayPal is in the description. Hey, Trav. Hey, Nick. Why is it 50 days? Because that's the end of summer, right? That's the summer offensive time frame. That's the time frame that Putin has told his generals to secure the illegally annexed territories. There's no chance of them doing that. But in Putin's mind, he's winning. He thinks there is. He thinks there is. And he is very happy to unalive as many people as he needs to for that to happen, is certainly what it appears like to me. Pardon me. Ooh, it's been hot in Kyiv this week, baby. It's really, really been nice out. I've been hiding in the air conditioner, to be frank. Now, it's important to recognize that there are 3 pieces to this whole weapons and aid and tariffs thing. There is the weapons and aid that's on the way, apparently. We'll see what shows up. There's the 100% tariffs on Russia, which Russia absolutely does not give a fuck about. Then there's the Lindsey Graham sanctions bill, which would provide for secondary sanctions on countries that buy Russian oil and gas in an effort to really choke off the air hose that lets the Kremlin keep breathing and prosecute this war. The flow of oil money to the Kremlin. That's what they're going to go after with the Lindsey Graham bill. But again, Trump has successfully delayed it for another 50 days. What does this say? Oh, Pistorius. We talked about that. Talked about that. Now, the drama, the real soap opera that came out of this announcement. The Financial Times, who are not to be trusted, but it's fun to say, is reporting that Trump told Zelensky to make the Russians feel it. Reportedly, he asked Zelensky, can you hit St. Petersburg? Can you hit Moscow? And it is reported that Zelensky replied, if you give us the weapons. Now, Trump's office is denying that anything like that happened, that he said anything like that. I don't know that Zelensky's office has denied it. And it certainly is on brand for Trump to say something so unbearably stupid, right? But so we don't really know if that was said, but it's kind of funny to think that it might have been. Okay. Mike Kelly, don't tell my friends what they owe me. Believe me, Travis doesn't owe me anything. Okay. So, guys, that's my top line understanding of the news today. I also wanted to talk about layered air defense, because a guy named Merv was confused by a video that I did about the Patriots coming as part of the Ukraine deal. And he had a great question. You don't use Patriots to shoot down Shaheds, so why is there all this fuss about Patriots? Now, most of the people that follow this channel, I think, could answer that question. And if anybody wants to, go ahead and throw it down there. But my reply to him was that you don't use Patriots to shoot down Shaheds, right? That what you use is a layered air defense with electronic warfare components, 35 millimeter auto cannons like the Skynecks and the Gepards. You use man pads, Stingers, and Iglas. You use security in depth. I used to teach that when I was at Microsoft, right, for the whole OSI model, security at every layer. And that's a lot what this is like, OTAN bot, right? That's a lot like this is like. Man pads, right? Those shoulder-fired missiles, all the way up to F-16 interceptions, which we have seen with drones. But the Patriots aren't for the Shaheds. There's all that those layers of short and medium range electronic warfare, cannons, anti-aircraft missiles, all the way up to interceptor drones, which the Ukrainians are deploying by the tens of the thousands now. They have developed these very small, very effective, I think they come in at less than $1,000 a piece. Now, remember, it doesn't matter how fast the incoming target is coming if you can match an interception point, right? And all these drones do is they have a small shaped charge in them. They have the kinetic punch of slamming into the oncoming drone, and that's enough to take them out. And they're proving very successful, these interceptor drones. Patriots are for supersonic missiles, not Shaheds, says Guy. And that's exactly right. On top of all of those drones in the air, the Russians fire missiles. And when it comes to supersonic missiles, like the KH-101, the KH-555, which are both fired from the Tupolev 95 and Tupolev 160 strategic bombers, or the KH-22s fired from the Tupolev 22 bombers, the Kinzhal hypersonic missiles fired from the MiG-31s. Whatever those kinds of hypersonic or supersonic missiles, particularly on a ballistic trajectory, you need a Patriot system. And it's those missiles that do so much damage to the civilian population, that unalive civilians all the time. It was one of those North Korean KN-23s that destroyed that 5-story apartment block here recently, unaliving 9 people the night of the hit, and another 3 succumbing to their injuries in the hospital afterward. And so the Patriots are primarily to defend the civilian population from incoming hypersonic and ballistic missile attacks. Hypersonic can be intercepted. Yeah, that 20% interception rate is not right. I don't know what the right number is, but I'm sure that that's wrong. Hypersonic missiles, we just had a case. 4 Kinzhals came in, all 4 intercepted using Patriots. So please, don't fucking tell me that they can't be intercepted. That's just Russian propaganda of the worst sort. No, Iskanders are supersonic. Okay, so anyway. The first job of the Patriots is to defend the civilian population. I just said 20% is not right. It's definitely not. The first thing that the Patriots do is defend the civilian population against these kinds of missile threats. The second thing that they do, if there were enough of them, if the Ukrainians had 17 more, holy cow, more than tripling the number of batteries that they currently have. If they could afford to put a few up by the front line, then all those planes that fly glide bomb missions and drop glide bombs, they can't fly those missions anymore because suddenly the plane is at risk. And that's a big deal. That changes the way that Ukraine exercises its own air superiority in country. It changes the face of the battlefield. It creates the opportunity for the Ukrainian Air Force to pummel the front line with close air support and deny that same strategy to the enemy. Okay. So, guys, big thank you goes out. So that's my top line news stuff for today. Big thanks goes out to Arna, the sponsor of tonight's live. Big thanks to Nightshade, who has the Peter's Peeps group on the Book of Faces. To Lars, who has the Discord server. And, of course, to the moderators, Jay, Travis, Pete, and Maddie. Sorry, Maddie. Best moderators on the Tickety Talk. Questions, comments, points of observation, or personal need? Thanks, Trav. Guys, I have no sponsors the rest of this week. If anybody wants to sponsor live, PayPal's in the description. If you haven't joined the Patreon, and if you join the Patreon at any level and pay for the year up front, not only does Patreon give you a 10% discount, but I will also give you a live sponsorship with my thanks. Peter, I would love to see more of those Skynecks from Germany. There's only 2 in country. Thanks, you silly SOB. Right, there's only 2 Skynecks in country. They could use another double dozen easily. Guys, if you typed in a question earlier, sometimes the screen scrolls quickly. Please, I welcome all and any questions at this juncture. Love a dolphin. Why can't Europe close the Denmark Strait to Russian tankers? They could if the political will existed to do it, Seawolf. But one of the things to remember is that the NATO allies are supposed to be defenders of freedom of navigation. And so closing the strait, although I do certainly think that these Russian shadow tankers should be intercepted on the high seas. The Danes, what is it? It's JEF, the Joint Expeditionary Force, which I guess is the Nordic countries, the Netherlands and UK. They're doing interdictions in the Baltic Sea for insurance paperwork and safety compliance for all these tankers now, or they're threatening to anyway. Anthony, is there any way Ukraine can stop shipment from North Korea? Boy, I mean, They hit the railroads when they can, when it's meaningful. But what are you going to do in the Sea of Japan? What is Ukraine supposed to do? Right? That's where those ships are sailing. Along the North Korean coastline, up to Russia, in the Sea of Japan. It's so far away. I mean, if Ukraine pulled off some spectacular act of sabotage out that way, which they actually did just last week. Last week we talked about it, right? The gas pipeline that fuels all the military installations along the Sea of Japan coast in Kamchatka. That got blowed up somehow last week. So I don't know, maybe, Anthony, we'll keep our eyes open. We'll look for more things going boom in Siberia. Two typhoons. What's a typhoon? That's not an F-16, right? What's a typhoon? Have they fixed the communication with language between Russia and North Korea? No, they have not. No, they certainly have not. Nobody wants Kaliningrad. It's full of poor Russian drunks. Who would want it? Typhoon is a Eurofighter. Who makes them? Oh, it's a UK fighter jet. The Eurofighter. Nice. I haven't heard anything about anybody sending Typhoons to Ukraine. A European consortium makes the Typhoon. Nice. Questions, comments, anything Ukraine related? You know, it's a nice thought, right? But Ukraine's already got MiGs, Tupolovs, Antonovs, F-16s, Mirages, the Swedish AWAC. I can't think, what is it, the 340? They've got such a mixed pastiche of weapons because it's all come right hand to mouth from whoever they could get it from. You know, adding another plane, I don't know that that's the best idea. Although they do seem to want those Gripens. No. Those Typhoons, those Typhoons in Poland are there as part of Operation Baltic Shield. They're doing reconnaissance and spying on Russian ships in the Baltic, is my understanding. And they're flying out of Poland. No word on the Dragonfire lately, no. I would think that it's an evolving capability. They've got them, they've used them, and they're probably in the process of redesigning them and making them better. I don't know, Anthony. We were supposed to barbecue for some guys, and then that did not happen. So I'm waiting on a new date for when we might be able to do that. It may not be until August. No. The Baltics are protected as much as possible. The Baltics are doing their level best to protect themselves. I can't remember now if it was Latvia or Estonia or Lithuania. Shoot. I want to say it was Estonia, but somebody would have to fact check me on this. Not only are Poland, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, and Finland all withdrawing from the Ottawa Convention that prohibits anti-personnel mines, they're withdrawing from that convention so that they can mine the shit out of their borders with Russia and Belarus. They're digging trenches. They're digging revetments. They're digging fortified positions. In addition, I think it was the Estonians, but I'm not sure. Somebody has built 32 concrete bunkers, or is in the process of building 32 concrete bunkers, fortified positions along their border with Russia or Belarus, one or the other. Estonia just fired HIMARS for the first time. They're testing HIMARS systems as part of military exercises with NATO. They got a HIMARS in, and the HIMARS was fired for the first time on Estonian soil just this week. That pissed the Russians off. Yes, it did. So they are working real hard, Maddie, to protect themselves. God helps them that helps themselves. JASMs are under discussion or might be included in this package. Tomahawks were ruled out. I think we're waiting, Guy, on clarification as to whether or not JASMs are in this tranche. Oh, I think Poland is really itching to get in the game, don't you, Common Sense? Well, Nan, as far as, well, gosh, Nan, I don't know if you're a diabetic or an asthmatic, if they'll even take you. I don't know if you fail the physical with those conditions. So I don't have an answer to that. I think if they're Ukrainian, they're likely to be getting their medication on a regular basis. And if they're Russian, I don't think there's any way for us to tell. Poland remembers history and took the brunt of World War II. Yes, they did. Trump said no to long-range weapons. Well, it depends on what you call a long-range weapon, Nightshade, right? You know, the ATACMs only have a range of 300 kilometers or about 200 miles, so they're not really long range. But we've been talking about them like they're long range for this whole war. And one of the things that came out of yesterday's announcement was that Ukraine has unrestricted access to use the full 300-kilometer range of any ATACMs they still have. They have 18 left. 18. I mean, the U.S. only ever sent like 120, and they still have 18. So they have used them to great efficacy, and I believe the last 18 will probably be used just as well, if not better. Oops. Poland has an itchy trigger finger. Yes, they do. Not nearly as itchy as Russian air defense that almost shot down a Boeing 737 the other day, but an itchy trigger finger nonetheless. Maddie writes on fire tonight, as always. As always. Okay, what else we got here? We got about 14 minutes left, guys. Um, Ukraine is making their own long-range missiles now, and these are truly long-range, Mighty Mac. We're talking about a 2,000 kilometer, right? A 1,300-mile range. So truly long-range devices, not like the ATACMS. The Germans assisted with that, with 5 billion euros in investment. And we just had the announcement that the first couple hundred off the assembly line are headed into the hands of the frontline units by the end of this month. So the first domestically produced long-range Ukrainian missiles, which I don't know if they're, I think they come in both ballistic and cruise flavors, but I would have to double check on that. Thanks, Nunya. Yeah, I think that there's a cruise version and a ballistic version, or varieties, if you will. But according to the Germans, the first batch came off the assembly lines of serial production, and the first couple hundred of these missiles are headed to the battlefront in the next 2 weeks. So let's see what happens. These next 2 weeks are going to be meaningful. Nunya doesn't want to die in a nuclear war. Well, nobody does. The good news is that it's extremely unlikely that Russia's nukes work. I would not lose any sleep over Russian nukes. I really would not, pal. Common Sense in Crazy Times prefers his cruise missiles in spicy. I'm a big fan of the double nacho cheese myself. Well, you talk about flavors of quarks, you talk about, just flavors, whatever. Oh, look, Nan put a U in flavors. Nice. Hey, Bjorn. Hey, Roy Daniels. I'd only be afraid of Sarmats if I was in the launch facility. Do you think NATO will ever have boots on the ground? Only if Russia fucks this up. That's the only way. Russia would have to do something amazingly stupid to draw NATO into this war. Yes, I know, Dawn. I was just pointing it out because it was adorable as fuck. Absolutely adorable. As a kid, I used to read a lot of British authors, and then I could never remember which way to spell gray. Amazingly dumb. Okay, we got 10 minutes, guys. Questions on Ukraine. I sent you a clip from a British military analyst to you, Miss. This is a fair summary at the moment. Okay, thanks, Guy. I'll take a look. So it is worth mentioning, last night, one of the sponsors of the live was Lindy, who was a first-time live sponsor, and she had the live sponsorship because she joined the Patreon and paid for her year up front, got a 10% discount, and a live sponsorship. You could have that deal too. Join the Patreon. Help keep me in Ukraine. If you enjoy what I do and you would like to see me keep doing it, if it's important to you. And for you guys, I really want to say, I thought of this today, and I do want to say to all of you, good job not turning away. This war is now 3 years and 6 months old. It is easy to be burned out by it. It is easy to turn a blind eye or turn off the computer, turn off the TV, forget about what's happening. But I promise you that what is happening here in Ukraine is the most geopolitically significant event of our lifetimes. What happens here at this critical inflection point in history will affect the lives of hundreds of millions of people in the 21st century. And all of you in your comfortable lives in the United States or in the West or wherever it is that you call home, you could easily tune this all out. You could forget about Ukraine and the suffering of the Ukrainians, but you don't. You stay tuned, you support me, keeping me here, keeping the news flowing from what I think is my unique perspective. And I'm deeply grateful to all of you for all of that. So thank you. Does Ukraine have the capability of hitting the Kremlin? Would this ever happen? They've already hit the Kremlin, Joe, with a couple of small drones, right? You might remember a while back. I don't know. I'll tell you what I know. The Ukrainians have been doing so much with so little for so long that they are basically qualified to now do anything with nothing. And if in this period, this 3.5 years, where there was never enough of anything, 18 ATACMS in the whole stock right now, they have to choose their targets carefully. They have to prioritize those targets and hit the ones that will have the most meaningful impact on reducing Russia's ability to prosecute this genocide. I trust the Ukrainians to make those decisions. If hitting the Kremlin is important, they'll hit the Kremlin. If taking the Kerch Bridge is important, they'll take the Kerch Bridge out. I trust the Ukrainians to take the Kerch Bridge out when it devastates the Russians the most. That's when it'll come down, and not before. Same with the Kremlin, Joe, in my opinion. Thank you, Anthony. I appreciate that. Thank you, Lars, for your OCD. We got to 150. Ooh, hey, are we going for a new record? We're at 160,000 likes. That would be a new record, I think. I don't know what the record is, Maddie. I think that this is close to it. Lars is the keeper of the history. I don't have any bravery. I'm not a brave person. The Ukrainians are brave, that's for sure. Yeah, Gary, the Russian economy is in the toilet. It's a problem. It's definitely a problem. It would have to be drones right now. Kyiv to Moscow, 340 plus miles. That's what everybody's saying, Guy. Lots of military hardware en route. Let's see what shows up. Last record was 130. So, guys, you broke the last record beautifully. Thank you. Scully just learned to make hearts. Am I worried that China's getting involved more? I'm not worried, no. I know what China wants. China wants a weak, vassal Russia. That's what it wants. And it wants to be able to exploit Russia the way that Russia wants to be able to exploit Ukraine. It's turtles all the way down with these people. So, Am I worried? I don't think China's ever going to send troops, if that's what you mean. It is disappointing that China is doing so much to help them build lethal weapons against Ukraine, to use against Ukraine and Ukrainian civilians. And that will only prolong this conflict. Foolishly prolong this conflict. So, thanks, Jan. I'm not worried about I'm not worried about China, no. I'm much more worried about the actual weapons and men that North Korea is sending. That seems to me to be a bigger concern of some immediacy. Well, thank you, Maddie. We still got 3 minutes, guys. Any other questions on Ukraine or comments on Ukraine or feedback for me on my comments on Ukraine? Xi is plucking his chicken. He sure is. Xi, stop plucking your chicken. Xi, I said, stop plucking that chicken in public. Put that chicken away. That's what I said. I told him, I said, Xi, if you're going to pluck your chicken in public, I am going to hit Beijing hard. Thanks, JJ. Do they have a lot of Ukraine prisoners? Yes. I don't know the exact number of POWs, but it is important to recognize that the Russians are holding thousands of Ukrainian civilians in prisons inside Russia, along with at least 20,000 kidnapped Ukrainian children. And then 4 million Ukrainians in the temporarily occupied territory who are all being held hostage. So yes, they certainly do. Yeah, Roy, I've seen that press about, Melania said, I had a great call with Vladimir. Donald, he bombed the hospital. Melania Trump is not turning on her Kremlin masters. I'm sure of that. Do they torture? The Russians? Yes, the Russians torture everybody. Thank you, Sandra. Okay. Well, 190,000 likes. Wow, you guys are really something. I think so, Scully. I think she's absolutely complicit. Remember that coat? I don't care. Ugh. Anyway. All right. Again, big thanks to Arn, who is the sponsor of tonight's live. If you've never sponsored a live, maybe consider it. PayPal is in the description. Big thanks to Lars, who has the Discord server. Big thanks to Nightshade, who has the Peter's Peeps group on the Book of Faces. And, of course, to Jay, Travis, Pete, and Maddie, the best moderators on the Tickety Talk. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Dawn. Thanks, Di. Good night, Gare. Night, Little Red. All right, guys. It's 1 a.m. here. I'm going to call it a night. Oh, I did start reposting the lives on YouTube. So last night's live is on YouTube, and this one will go up too. Thanks, everybody. Make it a great day.